Welcome to the channel. My name is Karsh Gowan. This is GoblinCaveTV, and today for our TTRPG book club we are going to be looking at the Expanse role-playing game. This is a third in our series of role-playing games to do with the age system or the adventure game engine. We've looked at previously Fantasy Age, which is an open world system, open gaming system for fantasy games using the age system. We've looked at Modern Age, which again open system, which is pretty much for everything for the modern variations. This is a sci-fi version, but this is specific on the Expanse universe. But if you want to use it for other sci-fi, that can work too. Hi Polly, just saw you come in. So if you caught this a few weeks ago when we did this before I was sick, yes, this is pretty much going to be a re-recording, maybe a bit more refined than that. I can't believe my goblin played around with the pitch that time, and I was scary voice for most of the episode. So let's do this properly, shall we? So the Expanse is a lo-fi sci-fi. If you're not familiar with it, it's not a sci-fi with laser swords and monks and aliens races and things like that and light speed or etc. This is a grounded universe where it's all humans. You have three factions. You have the Earthers, who have pretty much all the power or the wealth. You have the Martians, or the people from Mars, who are trying to make a colony to rival Earth, and they are resettling and terraforming, and they're very militant. They've broken away from Earth, and then you have the Belters, who are just crapped on from both sides. And by that, the Belters essentially are born in space. They live on space stations. They do all the heavy lifting in space. So they're kind of the downtrodden. Factions in the Expanse is a big thing. So if you're going to play the Expanse, have a look at which faction really suits your playstyle and what calls out to you, because I think that it will play a really big part of the Expanse role playing. Now, the adventure game engine, or Age, is the backbone to this system. Is the backbone to a few other systems, as I mentioned earlier. The Age system is very similar to your D20 systems, where you have a dice roll plus modifier versus a DC. In this case, it's not a difficulty class. It's a target number, and instead of rolling a D20, you're rolling 3d6. Now, the 3d6 means that you're going to average more in the middle, instead of having a D20 where it could be just as evenly a 20 or 1, it's all a 5% chance all the way around. But when you're rolling 3d6, when you have a look at the averages, you're going to be more in that central area. So it works better for calculations and for risk-taking, because you're going to be most likely in that middle area. Very similar to how Fate works, where you're going to be in that middle area a lot more often. Now, in those 3d6, you have one dice which is different, which is called your drama dice, and that is a really important sub-dice or subsystem throughout the entire game system. If you're rolling doubles, on all three of those dice, or any two of those three dice, and you also pass, it can trigger a stunt. Stunt is where the system, I feel, really shines. The stunts essentially are their version of a critical. You're going to have them a lot more often, because it's not just a 5%, but it's way higher than 5%. Please, if you know the math, yell it in the comments. I'm not going to be working out the math. I've never been good with it, but it's going to happen more often. Now, what happens with the stunts is it's not just a critical, it's not just double damage, which you'll find in a lot of other systems. It triggers options. And when I say options, I mean a lot of options. So the amount you can spend on that is off your drama dice. So if your drama dice is 1, then you don't have many options to spend. If your drama dice is 6, you can choose from the entire chart, because all these options are weighted. It can be anything from attacking again, to an instant reload for things like combat, to extra movement in combat, or these can actually happen in other areas. So that's where a lot of systems fall down, where you can get criticals in combat, but not elsewhere. In the age system, you can get those criticals in social interactions. You can flirt with someone, you can actually have someone attack you so you don't have the first strike. And you're the innocent party because you've spent your stunts to do that. There's lots of different options. You can even do it in ship combat in the Expanse specifically. There's options in the chase sequences where you can actually have these stunts triggered. And there's options in exploration, so searching a room. You can find extra evidence, or you can find this and that. There's so many bits and pieces there. It's really well done. Learning the tables will take a little bit of time, but I think you'll find that a lot of people gravitate to favourite stunts for their character. And even when I'm looking at NPCs, and I wouldn't call them monsters, but NPCs and adversaries, they do say like this person favours these stunts if they come up. And I think that was kind of how it will work when in play as well, that your characters will individually focus on certain stunts in certain situations because it fits their character a bit more. Now, there's a couple of subsystems which the Expanse brings in which aren't in the previous versions. Now, the Expanse brings in something called Fortune. Fortune goes up 3 per level, so you get extra as you go up levels. There's no classes anymore. The classes were taken out in the modern age. The fantasy age has them, but in modern age they've taken out. And again, we don't have classes. We have backgrounds, we have the factions and etc. and classes, as in social class, but not actual class-based systems that you'd find in such like D&D or Pathfinder. So in this game, they have the fortune. A fortune is essentially just like a luck dice in other systems, wherein if you roll 3 times and you say you've got 4 fortune, you've got 4 fortune points, and you roll 3 times, you get a 6 on your drama dice, and you get a 4, and then you get a 1, and you just don't have enough to succeed. But if you've got a 4 and a 1, you can change the 1 with your fortune to a 4, and now you've got 4/4, which is a stunt, plus a 6, and you've got 14 for your skill, and you've passed your skill check. So that means you've not just passed your skill check, but you've also triggered a stunt, which is a great thing. A stunt with 6 abilities, or stunt points, that is. So it can come in really important. But once you've spent that fortune, it then goes down by 1. So spending the fortune is a nice little resource for you to like, oh, I really need this roll, we really need this, or I really need to do that and this, or you want to trigger a stunt. I think it's a really good idea. I think that I like the idea. I think it comes in really well. There is how can I put it, a cost to it, but we'll get that to the next part. But so I think the fortune comes in really well. It goes up by 3 every time you level, so it'd be good to just keep it there. Like keep it around that maybe 4, 5 or 6 mark, and not go too far down, because you don't really want to spend like 1, 2 or 3 to move a dice to 1, 2 or 3. You want to be moving it to like the 4, 5, 6 mark. Also, if you're spending it on your drama dice, it's going to cost you more. It's going to cost you double. So if you've got 6 in your fortune, to dump it into your drama dice will only come out as 3. So it's going to cost you double. That's because the drama dice is so important when it comes to tiebreakers and stunt points and just so many other things. Sorry for the clap there. Now, the last thing that they have changed, which is something I really, really like for the universe of the Expanse. The universe in the Expanse, it's mentioned in the movies, it's mentioned in the books. It's called the churn. And the churn is the universe working against you. When something is going good, something bad's going to be working in the background. So every time you spend fortune points, every time you spend a certain amount of stunt dice, or stunt points, the churn tracker moves just that little bit. So the churn tracker is this one here. It starts at 1, or so it starts at 0, and just moves around. At 10, there's a check. At 20, there's a check. At 30, there's another check. So it starts off with either something minor happens or nothing happening. Now that minor could be a you may have to roll again for a check. It may be a friendly or an NPC could move one category away from you, as in one category from friendly to indifferent or indifferent to hostile. Maybe they've found something out about your past. It may be false, but they've just got a negative view on you now. It could be that a enemy has gone up one level, or essentially a level in power, in degree of power. Now, as you go to the next stage, the two options are something minor or something major. Major's a bit more. Major can be a bit more scary, where again, someone can go two ways against you. If it's a social situation, they're less favourable by 2 steps. There's more things that can happen here. It's on the page here. It should be a little bit. There we go. Now it's focused a bit more. So it kind of works out going to be against you. The more luck you've had over time, the more the universe is against you. If you reach 30, you are rightfully screwed. You are really going to have some issues, but I really like that idea. We use on our channel, we use chat donations to influence things. I would love to influence the chat donation for this type thing as well, because I think it'd be really fun. And I would advise the GM in this case to hide the churn tracker, so that players don't know where things are going, like where they are on the churn tracker. They have to keep mindful of, how many times have we done this? How many times have we done that? Oh boy, we're going to have to be close. Because they may not choose to use stunts, because it's going to backfire on them later on. Now, what this does do as well is it means that as the GM, using the churn tracker, it's an optional thing. You can choose not to, but I would absolutely say yes, do it. I would say, as the GM, you need to be a bit more open. You need to be very fluid in what you can do. If you are very structured in how you do your games prep, try to work in parts with the churn tracker in mind. So parts where, okay, this person can do this person can do that, or this is going to fail on them, force them to actually have a consequence. If you're not that organised and you'd like to ad lib a bit more, this really plays into that style, because things will change, things become fluid, and an ally from a player's perspective may no longer be an ally when they call upon them because of the churn tracker. So having that in mind can really make the game dynamic, and I really like this idea. So if you haven't read the books, if you haven't seen the movies, you can still jump into this. There's a few products, and I was running the Kickstarter, so a little bit of a disclaimer, I have part of this Kickstarter. So the Expanse looks like this. It's pretty cool. It's probably the biggest, I wouldn't say the biggest book of the age systems, but a lot of this is actually just lore stuff. So not really like deep heavy, but it just talks about the factions, talks about the bits and pieces and where things are in the universe. It's really easy to jump into because it doesn't have like the laser rifles and all that type of stuff. As I said at the start, it's a grounded universe. It's really strangely grounded, and just makes sense. It's about people getting screwed over by people above them or people with power. It's not about being superheroes. It's just about people either surviving or just going through the grind, or maybe trying to make something of themselves. It's not an easy it's not an easy world to survive in. Another thing that they brought out is the GM screen. GM screen is actually really good, and one thing I love about it is in the same package it has some really cool stuff. It has combat sheets, it has turn trackers, it has the stunts, and it's got multiples of these, also focuses and other conditions and things like that, and it's got multiples of these, so you can actually spread them out on the table, and means that the players have really good access to what's going on. It also has a really cool Like this is the Games Master kit we're going through. It has a small little introduction campaign, or not a campaign, but like a adventure, and has pre-mades for it. There's actually a couple of these. So the Quick Start as well has a pre-made adventure as well, and they're both actually using, I believe, the same characters. So they could be quite linked easily to have like a small narrative there. Now, if you don't want something small, you can also go to the larger adventure as well. So the one thing I like about this is there's no maps. It's very much a theatre of mind game. There's a lot of focus in the age system about social adventures and social engineering and social encounters. It's not just about combat. The age system works combat really well. It makes it fluid. There's no big issue in it. But at the same time, even though there's no big issue in it, there's a lot of focus on other things, on the exploration or on the social side of things. So it's a nice generic system which works in all three parts of the main styles of play when it comes to role playing. It's not just one-sided, where a lot of the big names, such as Dungeons and Dragons or even Paizo with their Pathfinder game, is very much focused on the combat side of things. In this, the system works equally for all three, and it works well for all three. It's not absolutely amazing, of course, but it works. And I think if you're making your own campaign stuff, if you're doing something in space, you could use this as a generic. You don't have to use the Expanse background stuff. But if you like the Expanse, and I do, I would highly recommend this. It's a really cool game. It's a really cool setting, and I like the system. I haven't gotten to play the system yet, but I really like the system. I think it just works so well. And for this week's recording, re-recording that part, just a remote. In the background, you have been hearing just a little bit of Syrinscape. We're doing the sci-fi this time in the docking bay, and so just a shout out to them. They're not a sponsor of the channel, but we do use their sound because they're so amazing. You can use them for sci-fi settings like this, or they've got fantasy, they've got modern day, they've pretty much got you covered in certain campaigns. They've even got full room-to-room voice acted bits and pieces. They're just so amazing. Go check them out at Syrinscape.com. So that's, I think, for this week. Check out the Expanse. Check out the age system, because I think that's really good. I think it's very underrated. I think people don't play it because they don't know about it, and that's why we do these TTRPG book clubs, because there are so many systems out there that are so good that people need to know about. And why try to homebrew and try to rip apart a broken system when there's other systems out there which just work and work perfectly for what you're trying to do. So for the recording for now, have fun, bye, and I'll hopefully see you next week.